Hey everybody. Today we're going to learn how to turn percents into fractions and fractions into percents. In order to do that, we're going to have to follow three steps. We're going to write the percent as a decimal. Then we're going to write the fraction using the place value. And then we're going to simplify as needed. So firstly, we're going to turn 40%. We're going to convert that to a decimal. And that would be 0.4. Or how would we say this? We would say this as 4/10. And we know that we can reduce by 2, and we get 2/5. All right, well, 5 didn't register. From there, we have 54%. Again, let's make our decimal place so that way we can move it. We end up with 54, we call that hundreds. So we just write that as a fraction, 54 hundredths. That's going to equal 27/50 because we can reduce by 2. Next one, we have our decimal place behind the 8. We move it twice. We have to add our implied 0 right there. This is going to be called 8 hundredths. So we write that as 8 100ths. The number that goes into both of these, the greatest common factor, is going to be 4. So when I reduce everything by 4, I will get 2/25. If I'm going too fast, feel free to pause the video so you can catch up. Number 3, I have 160%. We're going to move that decimal place over twice, which is going to be 1 6/10. I write that as 1 6/10. Only thing to do from here is I can reduce the 6/10 by dividing by 2, and I get 1 3/5. Oh, excuse me. Next one, we have 62.5%. Move over the decimal. This turns into 625 thousandths. I'm going to rate it just how I say it, 625 thousandths. And from there, what I would imagine that most people to do is either divide by 5 or divide by 25. But what we can actually do right here is we can divide by 125. I don't expect you to know your 125 math facts, but if we divided by 5, we would have saw that we could divide it by 5 again. From there, we end up with 5/8 as our answer. Number 5, we have 42.5%. Once we move the decimal place over twice, we end up with 42.5, which is 425 thousandths. This one, 125 doesn't go into it, but the number that does go into it is the number 25. Only 25 goes into this. I believe we end up with 17/40. Let's move on to number 6. 245, move the decimal place over twice. It's 2 45 hundredths. So our fraction is going to be exactly the number we just said. That's why it's so important to say this mathematically. 2 45 100ths. And then we can reduce the 45 100ths by 5. 5 is the greatest common factor. We end up with 2 9 20ths. Next, we have 32.8%. This turns into 0 328 thousandths. 328 thousandths. And we can actually divide both of these by 8. And we end up with 41/125. Number 8. Number 8, we have 76.5, which is going to be 0.765. We move our decimal place over twice. From there, this we say this number as 765 thousandths because the 5 ends in the thousandths place. And this, we can divide everything by 5, and we end up with 150 3 over 200. All right, now that we have plenty of practice with that, let's turn fractions into percents. So fractions as percents. First step is we're going to simplify the fraction if possible. We want to simplify because this makes us divide with smaller numbers, which happens to be easier. Then we're going to divide the numerator by the denominator. And then we're going to move the decimal 2 places to the right because that will help us turn that value into a percent. So the first one, the first value is going to be write 3/8 as a percent. Well, it's already simplified, so we don't need to do step 1. Now I'm going to write my 8 as my divisor and my 3 as my dividend. I have my implied decimal place. 8 does not go into 3. 8 does go into 30, which is going to be 3 times. We minus 3 groups of 8, which is 24. So then we bring down the 0. How many times does 8 go into 60? That will be 7 times. We minus 56. That will give me a 4. And then how many times does 8 go into 40? That will be 5 times. 5 groups of 8 is going to be 40. And so this is our decimal value. So 0.375 is our decimal value. Let's move that decimal twice to the right. So 37.5% is my percent value. We're only going to do a couple more because this is long division. So I know you guys all got this. A little trick here, number 9. Instead of doing long division, this is what we learned 2 days ago. We can just turn 25 into 100. And how do I turn 25 into 100? I would multiply by 4, and I end up with 12 over 100. And we know percent means per 100. So a little shortcut here would just be to write 12%. Now, number 10, we can have our 16 as our divisor, and how many times does it go into 14? However, the numbers are bigger. I don't want bigger numbers. Let's make smaller numbers. So let's reduce this, and we end up with 7/8. So we end up with 7/8. So now we know that my 8, or our 8, is going to be our divisor. So how many times does 8 go into 7? And 8 doesn't go into 7, so we add our decimal place. How many times does 8 go into 70? That would be 8 times. We minus 8 groups of 8, which is 64, gives us a 6. Add our 0. How many times does 8 go into 60? That's going to be 7 times. 7 groups of 8 is 56. We're left with the 4. Add our 0, bring it down. And then how many times does 8 go into 40? That would be 5 times. We minus 40, 0. So our decimal equivalent is 0.875, or 875 thousandths. And then we have to move this 2 places to the right. We end up with 87.5%. Because all of these are long division, I'm not going to sit here and do this. You guys are all capable. I hope you all do well. Please make sure you look at the answer key. Make sure you do your homework for tonight. It will be graded and checked for tomorrow. I hope you all have a great day.